All right. Welcome to the NFTs Are Stupid YouTube channel. This is Migs, usually goes by Migs Machine, and I'm very lucky to be hanging out with Mike Carson here from Impervious. Mike agreed to let us chat a little bit about Handshake, Impervious, and just kind of the general everything going on in the dWeb. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks.
Awesome. All right, Mike. So you've done I've seen you speak at a couple of HandyCons so far, and super informative. So I have that context, but maybe not everybody does. How would you kind of describe yourself, maybe professionally, and then kind of within Handshake?
Yeah, I I founded Park.io about 9 years ago and got really into domains, kind of just like stumbled into it, luckily, and just was really interested in it and it like went down a rabbit hole with that and like ended up getting a few ICANN accredited registrars and getting having to deal with all of ICANN and basically getting into really into the traditional domain space. And then around the same time that I founded Park.io, I also like discovered Bitcoin and just thought it was, once I really understood it, I realized it was like a revolutionary thing and really got into it. And then, like having those two things together, realized that domains, they're a digital asset. They should really be on a blockchain and looking into everything, like looking into Namecoin and that kind of failed. And then like looking into ENS and all this stuff. And then actually it was at NamesCon a few years ago. Well, this must be 4 years ago or so that I was at NamesCon and I saw Tiesha, the founder of Namebase, there. We talked, and I also talked to Brantley from ENS, and just really talking about and also Unstoppable was there too. But just talking with those guys and realizing Handshake, is a really uh, it's like the best solution so far. Just realizing that this is the best solution so far, and so and luckily that was right before mainnet launched in Handshake. So I was there like day one mining HNS, the right when mainnet was launched, and got really into Handshake for like the first year, just every day bidding in auctions and stuff. And then eventually what came from that is, you know, at some point, Zipkin was a huge important part of the community, and at some point he was he didn't have enough money to, so he was, because he wasn't getting paid for his work, and so he was going to get a job. And then I talked with him and I was like, well, I'll start this company Impervious and we'll do Handshake stuff. We'll hire you. You can work 100% full time on Handshake. I guarantee you 2 years doing this, and and we'll just see what we can do. And so that's where Impervious came from. So
Okay. First of all, pretty interesting series of events. I'm gonna unpack it a little bit. I just went to my first NamesCon, mostly because of all the Handshake folks that have been mentioning it over the years, and I wanted to see it for the first time. I don't have Web 2 domain experience besides like I've launched a couple websites for businesses I've needed in the past, but nothing out of the ordinary. Definitely not founding something like Bark.io. So what I noticed in NamesCon was that it's heavily divided and skewed towards Web 2 still, right? And I don't see a lot of that moving. So it sounds like maybe you discovered Bitcoin, and because you discovered Bitcoin, you wanted to apply that to domains, which is what you already knew. But like, what was your bridge there? Because it's not fluid, I guess is the best way to put it. Like people are either kind of pretty divided. So how did you come to the determination that DNS and blockchain should be a kind of one thing?
well, um, I guess like for for Bitcoin, it's just like this thing. It's like I knew is going to be big. And then like with Park.io, with .io domains and stuff, I knew there's an opportunity there. Um, and now with decentralized naming, I know there's an opportunity. Like I'm 100%, I know that decentralized naming is inevitable. It's too valuable. And I've always said I don't know if I don't know if it's going to be Handshake or what it's going to be, but I know there's going to be decentralized naming. It's just too valuable of a thing, and there isn't a great, we're still at the beginning. Like it's um, who knows what's going to happen, but all I know is that there's going to be a decentralized naming. But
Mm.
yeah, so I mean, with NamesCon, I know you're right. Like, look, when I launched Park.io, everybody in at NamesCon and everybody in domaining was like .io domains suck. They're like they suck. Do not get into them. No investors want them. And like NamesCon, there's nothing about .io domains ever. And until now, maybe there is, but like it's they're slow. It's people. It's any type of like investing thing. Not everybody's going to know what is good or what the market you know not everybody's going to know at the same time as everybody else. It takes time. And so I think and there's also a lot of people invested in with the current way of things. There's a lot of people who spend millions of dollars and are currently invested in the way things are now, and they don't want it to change. And there's a lot of people who just don't believe in it or don't have the conviction that decentralized naming, just like people don't, there's some people who don't believe in Bitcoin. They think they're like, it's just for thieves and like, people to buy opiates and stuff. That's all it's for. Like, so yeah, I I think, yeah, it's eventually like NamesCon in 20 years or something. I think there's going to be a lot more. I mean, it's definitely getting a lot more, I think, than it was. When I went that time, there was only like one panel on decentralized names, and that was the first time ever. I even changed my flight so I could get to that decentralized naming panel, which was Unstoppable Domains guy. But yeah, I think it's going to be a slow process. It's not going to be fast. It's going to be a slow process. A lot of people will be against it, and but in my mind, decentralized naming is an inevitable thing. So to me, it's an interesting thing and something I think I can help bring about, and it's something that I think is going to be a really positive thing for the world. So
Yeah. I smile when you say it because I came to a lot of the similar determinations, right? One of it is nobody wants to let go of what they're used to. They definitely don't want to look at their investments and go, are they potentially, trajectorying towards becoming obsolete, right? Like no, or is this really a better technology? Yeah, it almost seems like we're not the discussion isn't always based on logical terms alone, right? Sometimes it's based on like emotion and just customs and what people are used to doing. But I was sitting there during the live auction, and it was like holiday.com sold for $1.4 million, and I was like, it's still a ton. In my head, right? But that's just my interpretation of it, of course, right? But I think I came to a lot of similar conclusions. One is that, right, and it's not okay, us versus them, or they're wrong and we're right. It's also that things take a lot of time. Changing hearts and minds is not an overnight experience whatsoever. And I think my takeaway from this is not only is it a very long road ahead, we're definitely on the same page there, but also that the decentralized domain kind of next steps in adoption will more likely come from the blockchain space, in my opinion, than it will from the domain space, right? That's I think that kind of Bitcoiners and people along those lines that really value decentralization will see the value in these domains before a traditional domainer will, in my opinion. What do you think differently, or have you ever thought about it from that angle?
um yeah, I mean, it seems like with that ETH and stuff, it was definitely that way with that. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know exactly how it's going to play out. The only thing I know which I have like 100% faith in, is that decentralized naming is just so invaluable that it's inevitable. So that's all. I mean, that's just all. I don't know. I'm stuck on that thing, which I just really believe in. So yeah, but I'm not sure. I'm not. Yeah, I don't know like all the detail how everything's going to play out or anything like that. So the best thing I can do is just focus on what I can try to do to help, and and also what's interesting, so yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe you're right. I mean, I see that could definitely be a possibility. Yeah, I don't know.
It was just a feeling that, yeah, I guess just based on what changes faster, right? But the great part about this isn't, whether I'm right or wrong, we get to watch it happen. So because I'm with you, it will be happening. I think it is too valuable. It's a good way to put it. Speaking of trying to make it happen, right? So I'm, in my own little social way, I'm trying to do that by kind of educating people. But you've taken it a step much further with building out Impervious and rolling out a few different products in that realm. So we have Fingertip and Beacon, right? What kind of what was is it? How would you describe coming up with those products, those ideas, the rollout of it, right? Maybe what were other ways that we can like that. That's a lot of resolution. That's helping people navigate towards these websites in the form of actually, just getting there, which is probably the most important utility behind these domains. But yeah, if you could tell us like how did we decide? How did we build the roadmap? And just, yeah, all of that.
You mean how did we as Impervious, or how did we
Yeah,
going
as
forward?
Impervious.
Yeah. I mean, it was not like, I mean, mostly, honestly, it was just uh it was mostly Buffer. Buffer's a great developer. And he just, was, there's a lot of freedom in Impervious to work on like whatever you think will add value. And he just, really uh came up with that stuff. Um and yeah, came up with the browser, just started working on the browser and built that out. And that was really amazing that, he did that. And it's the first browser that resolves HTTPS without, a trusted third party, using Danes. So it's awesome. And yeah, it resolves Handshake and also the impervious domains.eth and stuff like that. So yeah, he does an awesome job. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't uh it's kind of just like whatever uh whatever, work on whatever you think will help, and Buffer just worked on that. So yeah, I can't really take credit for anything for that stuff. So yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. I mean, I think, yeah, maybe, it's good to just let the creating a platform for creative liberty to be able to, do what they think is best is definitely a one way to stimulate next steps. So, okay. And then, when you say that decentralized domains are just too valuable not to become, right, not to become a thing, not to become adopted. You have a lot of experience with .io domains, which, and all sorts of domains. What characteristic to you stands out the most? What is a clear limitation within the current system, right? That blockchain domains just blows out of the water, for example, right? Like what is the limitation? What's that threshold for you?
I mean, it's the exact same as Bitcoin with banks and stuff. It's like when I go to the bank, it's like if I want to get my money out, there's like a crapshoot. I'll be able to get my money out. It's like, well, if the manager is there, if you got permission, they got to call somebody. It's like I like putting a down payment on a house. I went to do that. They're like, oh, you should have called. You got to call this in advance. Do all this. It's like, and the same with domains. It's the same thing with domains. There's all these people in the middle who complicate things. And look, a lot of these people are really nice. And I've met a lot of people like who work at ICANN and like registries and stuff, and they're great people. I really like them. But like there's rules, the governments get involved and do the rule, have these rules. And sometimes a lot of the rules are, just against common sense and kind of ridiculous and just like slow things down and cost a lot more money. And they're just a big pain in the ass, man. It's like, it's my domain, just like give me my domain. Like I want to remove all that crap. Like one example is like .xxx, you know, when their application to ICANN, you know, they applied, but they were delayed for years or something because the committee was worried that they would introduce porn to the internet, you know, something like that. And it's like, so yeah, there's like committees, all this stuff. And I know that they have these good intentions and stuff, but like, I think there's a lot of value for a person to individually own their name, just like to own their money. Like, why do you have to have all these people in the middle, registrars, registries, ICANN, governments, and stuff like that? All these other people in the middle who have control over your name. Like that, it's just a name. Like it's yeah, there's just a huge reason to have this, I think. Because it's slowing down a lot of things, you know, it's a huge drag. It's a huge drag on the internet and on freedom. And it'll it'll just make things go a lot better, in my opinion, to just cut out all of that stuff. So yeah, that's what I see it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I definitely, what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours. I'm definitely of that feeling. I'm a big fan of Bitcoin and well incentivized structures. So I couldn't agree more in that regard. There's just no need for all that extra weight. Um, it makes sense. Also, you know, it comes with the ability to be censorship resistant. Like there's, you know, it baffles me how the internet can be so concerned with geographical like limitations, right? Lines on a map when it is the open internet. It's almost as if like the radio really doesn't have those limitations. Of course, it has antenna frequency limitations, things like that, but my father, if he taps into a ham radio and somebody from a different country is tapped into the same frequency, they're communicating, and it's a, you know, geography doesn't really come into play. Of course, there is regulation there, but the technology is capable of this, right? It's not handicapped at some sort of, you know, place. So I agree with you that it definitely makes sense. Shifting a little bit, something that's also different. When I was at NamesCon, I had my Handshake hat on at the first booth I saw, which I think was a Sea-Doo booth, and it said, you know, register SLDs, TLDs, and I said, wait a second, are you allowing people to register a TLD? And the guy looked at me like, no, that's not what we're doing. You can, you know, we have multiple TLDs that you can register names on, and I said, oh, okay, that makes more sense. I said, you know, and then just to as an experiment, I said, do you own any TLDs? And they said, well, no, we own two TLDs. And I said, what was that like? And you know, very, very big bureaucratic process with, you know, a very expensive application. And then he mentioned a committee, which could, you know, stall things or potentially deny things. All that is leading up to this question, which is on Handshake, you can own your own TLD. You can have a decentralized domain name, which is very important, but you can also own a TLD as just anybody, right? Which is, I think interesting. What differences do you think? Is there any like differences you perceive or that you already kind of see between somebody being able to own a decentralized name, but now being able to own a decentralized top level domain? What, you know, from the managing park.io, right? Those are IO domains. Anything about owning a TLD that you see being drastically different from being able to own SLDs, even if they're both decentralized?
Yeah, I mean, I think well, I mean, I think that's part of the drag that, you know, ICANN is really boxed in the top level. They really like locked it in, and it's, to me, that's really holding back a lot because they've, by making it so expensive with time and money, they've really filtered it down to that only certain, like, you know, entities with a lot of money can get them. And then they've kind of boxed it in so that they can only be used really, you know, if they want to recoup their, you know, there's not a lot of experimentation going on at the top level. It's like there's not a lot of innovation at the top level. And so, yeah, I think it's a huge, awesome thing to open up the top level. I mean, that it's a huge drag that ICANN's doing that. It's a mistake, I think. And I think they're, like Handshake opening up the top level is a really smart idea, really smart idea. Like .eth, didn't do that. And it's just, yeah. Uh, so yeah, I definitely think that that's a smart thing to do. Um, so go ahead.
You actually generated thoughts that I had, which I think, first of all, I think when Handshake was being conceived, the top level wasn't fully on the roadmap. I think that during kind of the bouncing of ideas back and forth, the founders just determined, they said, like almost as like a hack, they said, wait a second, what if we just did this, right?
Yeah.
And then it was kind of born as part of the experimentation.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I remember Jay in the HandyCon talk, JJ talking about like how, they're trying to get Dane to work and it wasn't working with like second level, and like it just made everything way easier if you just made Handshake start at the top level, because then Dane, works so much easier. And I think, yeah, that's really smart. You got to do it that way. I mean, you got to do it that way, because like .eth is just weird. Like where's the .eth come from? Like they didn't focus on that. So .eth is kind of like an afterthought. It doesn't really make sense. And if you rely, and another, like some of these other TLDs are trying to tie in blockchain domains into like their existing like .link and stuff like that. I mean, but like you know, the like it's still relying on ICANN. Like ICANN can still take away. It's defaulting to ICANN for like the truth of who owns the domain and stuff. So I like that doesn't make sense either. So yeah, I think it really has to be done at the top level to do it right.
and one other thing you had said a moment ago was, in order to obtain a top level domain on ICANN, you need to spend a lot of money. Uh, I don't know about you, most people are not willing to spend what it costs for a house on a single top level domain. And even if they could, then they're now set with the immediate burden of having to recover that investment. And so the purpose of owning that top level domain becomes almost, pretty commercial by default, no
Yeah.
matter who you are. Maybe you're a huge organization and it's not that big of an expense for you and you can use it for more like humanitarian needs or something, right? But otherwise, now you're saying, okay, just to get this thing, time, could be X amount of time, months, years, and then you have to wait till you can submit an application, and then money is at least a minimum of 200 plus thousand. We'll keep it conservative, right? Dollars, and I now need to recover. And so maybe my intention for owning this has to become commercial when I originally could have wanted it for something, you
Yeah,
know,
I think
else.
I can. Yeah, it's like I think it. I talked to some people at ICANN. They said like you need like 1 million at least with lawyer fees and everything like that to get a top level domain. You need 1 million at least, and some go for hundreds of millions. But like, and also the nature of the thing is like I think each domain registered. I don't know the whole details of this, but I think each domain underneath the top level domain you have to pay a fee per second level domain to ICANN. So like the nature of this whole setup is that you basically have to charge for a second level domain. Like you have to run it the same way as it's always been going. It's really boxed in, and it's stifling innovation on the internet.
Yeah. Yeah. So agreed. It stifles innovation. One of my first thoughts when I kind of fully conceptualized what Handshake was, I was like, universities would absolutely love this. I was thinking back, how internet was born, and communication between, it's between universities was a big part of it. And I thought a university would be great. We can use, I don't know, dot Harvard, right? Like that would be pretty cool. I know having a dot Harvard, an at Harvard email is already like a big deal, right? And whatever university you're from. So I always thought that was the case when I was like, well, maybe a university could afford one, but are they really going to be allocating, tuition money towards something like this? Hard to justify. Um, okay. Well, I think I think we're just kind of agreeing with each other at this point on a lot of this stuff. What if we had to say? I guess. Do you have any thoughts on Handshake's been around for a while. The experiment is underway, well underway. We're about 3.5 years in. Couple days after. we've had the first halving on kind of the blockchain side, on the incentive side. Any thoughts on the state of Handshake on a technical or social level at this point? Being that it sounds like you watch Bitcoin closely, it's going to be a slow process. Some people get a little impatient with that. Do you feel like it's on track? Is there things you'd like to see? Things that how do you feel?
Well, so yeah, I've been doing it since the beginning, and not the beginning, like before mainnet, but like right at when mainnet launched. And yeah, I mean, I just want to preface this by saying, like, I've invested a lot of money into Handshake. I believe in Handshake. I still think it's the best solution, but you know, and I think it's important for me to be honest here, because it's like talking to a friend, who has something, you got to, I don't know, tell them, you know, you don't think their girlfriend is the right girlfriend or something. Like, it's important to be honest. Like, as a friend, you owe it to them as a friend to be honest, even though it might not be what they want to hear, and they might be pissed off at you for hearing it. Like,
Yeah.
so this is how I feel talking to the Handshake community, is like, I feel like it's important to be honest, even though you might not like hearing some of these things. But I mean, there are problems, as I've gotten to see, as I've gone along. I see more and more problems, and I, to me, some of the problems are, like, one is, developers. We don't have a lot of developers. We kept Zipkin on for 2 years, but, like, can't keep we can't keep being the only one to support the full-time open source core developers for Handshake. So, Zipkin moved on to another job, and so, like, we don't have, for me, it was hard to lose Zipkin. Like, Zipkin, knew Handshake, he liked working on it. He's a great guy, and it's, at a time when we need to be getting developers, it's hard to lose such an important one for me. But there's some other things, like, there's a lot of names registered. Like, one of the problems with Namecoin is that the distribution, I think that, all the names got squatted on because they're so cheap to register. Like, people just registered them all, and, like, so nobody could get anything. Like, if you wanted to build a site on Namecoin, you couldn't get a good name. So it's like, what's the point? And I think it's similar thing is happening right now with Handshake, which worries me. And I think the problem is, I mean, I really liked the way the distribution was handled with the 1 year of auctions, like rolling out the names in a slow process. That was really a smart way to do it. But now, it's you can register names for basically free, and to renew them, it's not much. So I wish that the problem I think there should be some better way to, I think there should be, like, a renewal fee or something like that. Just something to make it so that, names are harder. I'm worried because there have been a few people I know who had good ideas for a Handshake, site, but they couldn't get the name. Like, and these were, like, kind of obscure names, and they couldn't get a good name. So it's almost loses the point for that. And so that worries me. The other thing that worries me is Handshake price. The price. At first, I didn't care about the price. I was like, the names are the important thing. But, Zip can help me realize, I think, also, like, the security of the blockchain, it relies on the price. Like, the miners are mining so that they can recoup expenses, for their mining. And so the really low price worries me. And I think, in my opinion, one thing I think was a problem is this huge airdrop for developers made a huge supply. Even though it's not used, it's all locked up in the airdrop. There's this huge supply, and they base the mining reward on this max supply. And so the mining reward, in my opinion, is way too high. And so the miners are getting so many coins that they're just, basically it's the price is getting, there's just so much supply and not enough demand, and the price is getting sold into oblivion kind of, and it's affecting the security of the blockchain. So that worries me. So yeah, I mean, I think those are the main things. I think those are the main things.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So I guess I'm going to provide just a tad bit more context depending on where people are at here. If if you're the only person to ever been on a name, and that name, that auction ends, then you receive that name and you also receive your bid. So it was nothing, right? It was all virtually free to receive the name. So the cost of ownership is very low. And then on top of that, if you hold on to that name for 2 years and you need to renew it, the cost of renewing is very low, assuming that you are renewing. Now, I think the maybe let's call it conservatively 75%, probably more of the names in circulation are being held in one place, right? Which is Namebase, who renews them for you at this point in time. So you don't even have to really be responsible for renewing them. I think that's where you suggest like a renewal fee, and I think that makes a lot of sense, right? There's a proof of work, and then there should be kind of like proof of effort of owning, effort of ownership, I guess, would be part of it, because if you're not using that name, it's just sitting there dormant, or you forgot about it, or whatever it is, right? Then that does limit the kind of the utility of it. And then there is, right, this is a proof of work blockchain, and we did have a halving, but there is still, it's true, if if the coin's being sold into an oblivion, and the price isn't there, and then the security of the chain is significantly reduced, which would, I guess, the one bright side I see of this is that we're not talking about a lack of functionality, right? You can still navigate to Handshake names, and they function in that regard. So demand is what is needed. I agree with you, and I see that developers are needed. I recently did a talk with Eskimo on the channel, who's working on some different things, but he's also made the point that what the focus here should be, trying to get people excited about using Handshake, so that demand can be created, and usually that, hopefully that would lead in a right direction. But I see a lot of the things that you're saying. I see some good, but I also see some concerning ones, which is this is, how can it be that you and I, right, and others are so excited about this, and we have this massive crypto world out there doing all sorts of things, some good, some very difficult to understand the purpose, and they can't decide that they want to own kind of this piece of digital real estate on the top level, is always baffling to me. But I guess that's something that everyone can try to work on, as community members, is trying to get more interest in the space.
Yeah, I
And
think we
yeah,
need a way for people to get involved. And right now it's kind of hard to get, a new person coming in, it's hard to get a good name, that's the thing. And like for their project, at least from my perspective, maybe it's not as hard as I think, but like it has to be kind of easy, I think. It has to be a way where they can get excited about it by getting a kind of good name, and like being able to build on it that way. But yeah, yeah, it's I do think to be honest, I think some changes have to be made quickly, soon. I think things have to be made, changes have to be made soon to correct this course, because I'm worried that it's been 4 years, and I'm worried people are gonna start to think of it as a dead project or something, because the price going way down, like Brantley tweeted or something a while ago, like, look at the price, is Handshake dead? So it worries me. Like I feel like you know, somebody's got to step up and like make some changes. Like I feel like some of these, I'm worried that if it just keeps going the way that it is, it will just not get the adoption that we're looking for, because partly because of the price of the coin, and also just not just so many names taken and squatted on, and not people not being able to get a good name. Those are my worries. I mean, there's other worries too, like, yeah, it's centralized around name base and stuff like that. But yeah, uh, yeah.
Okay. Now on the obtaining of names, Handshake is very big on gifting, which I always thought was like the natural solution to this problem, right? Something that maybe Namecoin did not promote as much. I think Namebase does a good job of helping me gift, names to people. Although sometimes they get excited about it, sometimes they don't. But to one of your other points, it's like once they get that name, they don't exactly know what to do with it right away, unless they're really trying, unless they're really on here watching, going to handy cons and things like that. So maybe some out of the box solutions. So I always thought the D-Links feature was really cool. It just allowed somebody to like use it right away with something. And then
Yeah.
now, and then wallet addresses is also pretty great. Impervious making them available, making SLDs available through like OpenSea is I thought was a big breakthrough as well. I would
Yeah.
like to. I know. Yeah, I'd like to gift more. I can always try to do that.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's some great people in the community who are, yeah, gifting names. That's awesome. Even Impervious, the name Impervious was gifted. I was bidding on the auction, and then like I missed the end. I think I was the high bidder, but then like I missed the end and somebody got it. And I was like, oh man, this is embarrassing. But then the person who got it was like, hey, I got Impervious for you. I was like, wow, thanks. That's really nice. So yeah. So yeah, I know there is also, I know there's a lot of great people. I don't, you know, my my issue, like I I'm just worried about, the like the protocol itself. I mean, look, designing something like this is, you know, there's a lot involved, and I know a lot of it is like you just got to do it and see what happens. It's like, who knows? This has never been done before. We just got to make something. We got to make the parameters something and get it out there. We'll do the best we can and see what happens. And I think a few things, just a few things. It's like, I don't know. I remember saying this to Tishan once. It's like, I feel like it's like you've eaten some bad food, like Handshake's eaten some bad food, and I don't think it's gonna kill it. I hope it doesn't kill it. Maybe it's not that poisonous. You just have to digest it. You have to you have to figure, get through it. And I think, there's just these few things we gotta proactively, I would like to see proactively fixed. If I saw that happen, if I saw like proactive, like some people proactively like addressing some of these major issues, which feel are major issues, I would be really excited about it.
Yeah, uh, agreed. Agreed. I think a community effort, which at least I would say that there's a couple things that do make me optimistic about this, which is every time the wider I reach for community members, the more diverse the group becomes. Countries all over. I make the rugs. I've shipped them to like 6 continents so far, and in several different countries. So people are from all sorts of places, and there are people doing big initiatives. We got Sajan in India doing it with the universities. I think I like to see the geographic diversity and the kind of the cultural diversity in Handshake. That does make me optimistic that someone will pick up the baton at some point in time. And I do think that also there aren't a lot of proof of work blockchains out there right now. So if you're an investor watching this, you gotta be hearing us. The price is so low. This is your opportunity to get some cheap tokens on a proof of work chain. And I think that hopefully I think that there are people kind of poking around with some interest, maybe some new faces that we haven't seen before, and that could lead to in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely really smart people drawn to this. That's what I love about working on this type of stuff. It's like the smartest people in the world like get involved because they are interested in, and like Buffer, man, he's like insanely awesome developer, like one of the best developers I've ever met. And yeah, and there's other people, like, yeah, I know there's other developers, like, and so yeah, I it's cool. Yeah, I mean, it's a great community. It's just we can get through these things, if we can get through these if we can make it to the other side. I mean, the positive things is like the domain industry saw, even though the domain industry is still very Web 2.0 and stuff like that, there's some people, who saw the value. They know the value of this because, we've worked with ICANN and we've done it the traditional way, and we know like this is going to be a really valuable thing. And so, I was really pleasantly surprised by how many of the, how many companies from from the traditional domain industry got involved pretty early on. So that's a good sign. You know, and so yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, oh, fair enough. Yeah, we can start wrapping it up here. I do have a question. It's mostly just because I'm a fanboy myself. How do you feel about these emojis being available on Handshake? They're fun. I got let's see if the camera follows me. I got smiley faces everywhere. What are your thoughts about emoji domains? Do they have? When I interviewed Tayshaun a couple years ago, he said, "I really believe." Quote got me excited. He said, "I really believe that emojis have staying power." Do you think emojis have staying power given how much we're seeing them, given their kind of universal context? Do you think that they're as valuable as words, more valuable, less valuable, just a gimmick? What are your thoughts?
Um, yeah, I'm probably the wrong person because I'm getting older. I'm like I'm becoming an old man in the industry. Like, and but yeah, I emojis, yeah, I mean, who knows? I think definitely having it available is a good option. And I think, but I mean, from in the traditional domain space, like they don't allow, like only certain TLDs allowed it, I think, for a while. And so uh they never really did, nobody did much with them in the traditional domain, like typing into a website and stuff like that. I think Coca-Cola or something had one. Uh but yeah, so I don't know if I'm the right person to ask about that. I don't know that much about it really, but I think,
Uh,
yeah, why not?
might make you one of the perfect ones. No, I agree with you. The .ws allows for them, and although I always think that they convey emotion before thought, which is what makes them interesting to me on a universal level. Again, especially with I feel like I see them in my emails and in my subject lines way more than I ever did, and in kind of professional settings like on Slack. I also know that they just didn't get picked up in the past besides a couple marketing campaigns and a couple just kind of like short term things. So I'll keep holding out hope because I think that they're so cute, but they might not be. They're probably not going to be the main driver of adoption. We'll have to see. I know some people are working on getting them to some crypto projects that associate with emojis. We'll see where that goes. Well, Mike, I think this was I can't I think we covered quite a bit today. I can't thank you enough for taking the time. I also last thing I wanted to do is get your permission if you're the person to be asking. I wanted to make an Impervious fingertip rug. I think it would look pretty
Oh
sweet.
yeah, be awesome.
Any thoughts on that? If I make one of those, can I ship it out to you?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
All right,
Cool.
cool. We do on behalf, at least, definitely myself, and I know many other members of the community. We appreciate everything that you've kind of been doing for the protocol and pushing it forward and the efforts. I think we're gonna have a happy ending. But you're right. Right now, we gotta let this bad food get out. So we'll get to the next steps.
Yeah,
Um,
well, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's good to talk to you.
yeah, of course. Thanks, Mike.